Hi, this is Joseph. It's 8:15, 2019, Thursday. Just going to go over QQQ. First, going to take a look at the overall on a 5 minute. You can see it wasn't much of no gap or anything, just kind of followed through. I'm not going to get into the pre-market. There was I think it was like a 400 point drop in the futures and back up in the overnight and pre-market, but I'm not going to get into that. So I'm just going to point out a few things. We're looking for first of all, obviously it's a range day, and price closed within the opening 1 minute range, which is where the market gets delivered, and that's stasis. If it's also went right to the middle of the chart Mojo neutral cloud, which was at the bottom of the opening 1 minute range or gravity, and you can notice that unwound range stayed in the cloud almost all day and then just ended up a little bit below it. And that's where price touched in the very end of the day. So on a range day like this, which happens 70-80% of the time, you've got a lot of waves and patterns playing out. And instead of in a trend day where you have a big order flow agenda where everything kind of gets resolved early in the direction of trend, you get more range and more oscillation. And that's what was happening today. But we did have and also you get more tendency, more probability, more things that tend to reoccur in an intraday environment, which one of them would be the 940, 45. So you have an initial trend. And when it broke below the opening 1 minute range, there was a lot of sell stop orders there, and it just pumped it on down to there. Some support down here. If you look back, it's probably going to tie into something way back, but at 940, 945, you look for them to start thinking about getting neutral at 10:30, session one. And what they did, they usually put a counter trend move on. Often it's from low day to high day. In a 1 minute, there might be 3 or 5 waves in there. And the move generally occurs in the 950 to 1010 range. And there's 1010, so that was the up move. And at that point, you're looking forward to position to neutral ahead of session one, which there's your positioning move almost from high day down to 50% of the developed range, right at 10:15. I put those ellipses in there back here somewhere just to see if it's going to urge to neutral and be on a tendency or not. That's the unwound chart Mojo neutral unwound cloud, that darker orange cloud. It's bordered by the VWAP and the 50% of the developing range. That's where the market likes to unwind to. You take all the longs, all the shorts in intraday. When they unwind, they like to unwind to that. And you can see how many times it unwound to that, several. And so then you're looking for it to wedge up and box in and make a break. As soon as they assessed, they were looking for a catalyst. There wasn't really much going on. Something came along finally. And generally, I just kind of keep wedging that in and put a box on it because they tend to probe up and down looking for weakness. And when news pops or they discover a weak side, they push into it with strength. And this time they decided it was down. My bias is to do what price does. I don't have an upward or down bias. I imagine both, and I'm prepared to take it either way. That's my plan. So I scalped that down. But anyway, and then if you were on a 1 or 2 minute and you were running let's just do one example right there. If you're on let's say a 2 minute. So how do you know when that's going to run out of juice? You start running your trend lines in there, and point of control as you're going along. You can go up to indicators, volume profile, fixed range, and you drag your point of control for that from the break generally, and you look for this point of control to drop down at least a couple levels. And then my heads up is when this moves to price, I've already started looking. So I probably would have had, I can't recall exactly what I was doing, but I probably had this trend line first. So when that came up and broke, that was a little heads up. So when POC moves to price, you're looking to see which side defends. Kept on going. This is still a pretty steep angle. Didn't get the cover signal, Shanzi cover signal, that's what that green triangle is, till here. And that would have been, the secondary trend line and the clean uh, point of control break, and this shows up. So if you're looking at my other tools, you can see what was happening there. It was in this was all cell tier zone. So you start in a trend down like that, you start looking for the ADX to drop off. That's one sign that it's weakening, and then this starts rising, and then pops to there. So that's a heads up. So the real signal was when this went off, when it broke that trend line and point of control, starts going up. So you could either cover, or if you're aggressive, you could go long, the actual long signal. If you're going by if you're coordinating CM pop 1 along with Shanzi, you wait for, so this pop, that would have been a cover, and then when this went green, that would be the buy. So then you ride it on up, and there's all kinds of aggressive ways to play that and non-aggressive. But anyway, I'm just going to go back to 5 minute. So then you have your up move. Then you're looking for a positioning move. Notice where it went to. It went up to the middle of the opening 1 minute range. That's tendency. Takes some kind of catalyst or special big order flow agenda to escape that gravity. It's yellow because it symbolizes the gravity of the sun. Tends to bring price back to it a lot. It likes to unwind to the unwound cloud, but it likes to also return to the opening 1 minute range. So often if it's a big move, this unwound cloud will move out, and that's where it'll tend to return to. But if it's still staying within the opening 1 minute range, it tends to go back to both of them. So anyway, at that point, what are you looking for? You're looking for it to, tendency would be for it to return to at 115 to the chart Mojo neutral cloud, and that's what it does. I had that ellipse on there, and I was kind of laughing because SPY and in trading view, because SPY and QQ return there. So then you're looking close at the apex. It trades at the point. Anytime it goes back to neutral like that, symbolically what's happening is that it's you take the high and the low of the day, and then you extend to that. And you can kind of see a pennant. See that pennant? That's symbolically, that's what the forces are doing. There was just a little excursion beyond here, a little excursion beyond there. But technically, it's trading like a pennant at that point. So people hone in on the apex. The longer it sits there, the more volatility squeeze builds. So once again, you start, what they're going to do is they're coming back from lunch. They're going to assess all this and see if they can see a direction to push, these big players that come back. If they don't see anything for a few minutes, they have to probe. So they pushed up a little bit there. Did you see that? Then they push down a little bit. It comes back up to the middle of the opening 1 minute, or the neutral cloud. At that point, they've seen what sellers are in there and what kind of resistance they got going that way, and they see what kind of buyers are down here pushing up, and they can tell which is the weak side. So then they tend to push. They push into weakness with strength, and that's what I'm looking for. When I see that happening, notice that I got the Shanzi pop there. If you run the point of control in here, let's just try that. I'm not sure what it'll do on the 5 minute, but there was a signal in there on a quicker chart. Yeah, look at that. Price goes up to it, breaks the trend line. So this purple line, point of control, goes up there. That's a heads up. And then when it breaks the trend line, that's the other heads up. And you've got increased ADX. You've got a sell signal in Connors. You've got all kinds of things going on there. So you see it breaking out of the apex, and then it does the move of the day right there. That was a bigger move than the entire range of the day up to that point. So my bias at that point is I'm not thinking long or short. I'm thinking both, and I'm going to prepare to take the one that occurs. So the old saying is, imagine if X occurs, do X1. If Y occurs, do Y1. Imagine different scenarios. Take the one that confirms. Imagine the high probability scenario first. So you don't always know what that is, but if you do, I do know that it's going to break out of a wedge there. So that's why I'm focused there with a lot of other traders, and they're prepared to take that move like me. And that's what actually moves it. It doesn't move by magic. It moves by a bunch of people jumping on it. They're ready to jump on it, and that's a good. News often gets dropped right there. 115 news often gets dropped at the apexes because people that know about these dynamics, they know that they want to influence the direction out of those apexes. So you listen and you watch very carefully at those apexes. Anytime anytime that it wedges up at neutral, but those two times in particular. That's session 1, session 2. So then it goes down, and then the old what you do. You're on the fixed range, point of control on it, and all that stuff. And you see it drop down, and then you have your trend line on it. So where does it run out of gas? And on a 1 minute, there was a nice. Everybody in the trading room was going long, long, but they're saying long here, they're saying long here, long there, and I go, no, you have to wait for at least a price action long, which would have been like, see, all these just keep going down, and then when you get something like this, and point of control moves down there, then you can key up off the top of that candle. If it goes beyond that's an aggressive long, and that would trigger it, and then this would be your stop below there. That's how price action guys would handle that, and that's an aggressive long scalp. Here you have a cover, the Sean Z cover. You have an aggressive entry. ADX starts to drop off. Notice that right there. That's meaning this strong trend. That's a strong ADX move. This is waning. Then you've got this whole thing, this Connors thing, which is actually a composite of 3 different momentum indicators, oscillating momentum indicators. That's why I like it. It's quick, it's responsive, and it takes the best of all 3. And you can lay trend lines in there. You can see waves in that, all kinds of things. And if it hangs out above there, that's going to pull a lot. So you've got every possible long signal going in here, and eventually you get the pop 1 signal here. That's actually a cover, Sean Z, or aggressive entry. Some people will take aggressive entries coming out of this. This red is a sell trigger zone. This blue is a neutral exit zone, and this green is a aggressive or a buy trigger zone. So if you get Sean Z going green, this going green, that's a definite buy. Or if you're aggressive, you can be coming out of the sell tier and use that, especially if this is dropping hard and that's going up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But my signal, the main thing I'm looking for, I don't really trade off all these indicators, but they're pretty good. And I like to be I trade off the price action basically, because I'm looking at waves and exhaustion mostly. And I'm also looking for wave 3s because I like to catch wave 3s because if it's 5 up, you've got a nice wave 3. If it's ABC down, you still have a ABC, which is a wave 3. So both directions, you generally have a wave 3 or C. So I'm definitely trying to catch that. But I'm also trying to catch aggressively the turn. If you get a price action long signal like that, a break of the trend line and a break when point of control moves to price, that's a heads up. That means that's the heaviest traded level in that leg, and it means that all these shorts are starting to cover in there. And for other reasons, if you think that's going to exhaust, this move is going to exhaust, then those longs will start defending. So you look closely on the point of control to see which side defends. And in this case, you could easily see that it capped the bottom and started pushing up. And it's breaking the trend line. And you get this signal here, and you get this signal here, and you get this dropping and this up. It's going to go up. So then you're looking for it to go up. Where's it going to go? It goes to the sell tier, just below, ABC up to 50% of the day's range, to the sell tier just below the chart Mojo neutral unwound cloud, which is where people like to target. They like to step in front of that with their sells and get out coming up here. It doesn't look like much in here, but in NQ, it's like 50 points. So, and I'm using this to trade NQ. So I know I don't trade SPY QQQ directly ever. They just don't move enough. So anyway, comes back down. I didn't have this on here, but somewhere along when we got up to here, I could see that what was happening. I could see that it was going to go into a 5-wave right into the middle of this opening 1 minute range. So I said to people were thinking it was just going to go up and right on out into the sunset. And right about there somewhere, I said, "Anybody see any structure in there?" Because you can channel in these things, and if you channel it in, it kind of helps you see it a little better. You can kind of see the one. My eyes are just trained to see 5-wave patterns, 5-wave force patterns, not Elliott wave. Although this one looks like a decent Elliott wave, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should definitely be able to see that. You should definitely be able to see any little head and shoulders. Like there's quite a few things going on in here today, but I'm not going to get all the way into that. But definitely you should be able to see 5 waves, 3 waves, retraces, because they're all over the place. They're happening all the time on every time frame, all the way down to like minute tick frames, tick time frames. I run a 2 Unarenko, which is a really fast chart in NinjaTrader, and I see more patterns in there than anywhere else. And they're almost streaming like a sine wave. But so anyway, you get the 5 waves. Whenever I say that, notice any structure, I'm usually saying to people, I see 5 waves, but I want people to look around and try to see them on their own. So anyway, then you're looking for exhaustion. So then you run the trend lines up in there. You run the point of control or volume profile in that section. You see it step up right there to price. You could run, there's various ways to run the trend lines in there, but I just knew it was going to exhaust because it was 5 waves. And where did it go to by the end of the day? Right back to the middle of the unwound cloud. Because why? That's where things unwind to. When you take all the longs and the shorts from the open and unwind them, they tend to unwind to that cloud. And that's exactly what it did. Nice little touch there in the bottom of the opening 1 minute range. So I don't know if that helps, but that's a little bit. I'm usually trading on a 1 or 2 or 3 minute time frame, so it's kind of hard to look back on a 5 and explain what was going on. But there was a lot of tendency today. I did really well. I had a high percentage of winners based on tendency. If you don't, the only way to get ahead, everything on the chart is a result of other things, and price moves from a confluence of factors, components, to confluence of components. Like might be an MA in there, there might be a fib point in there, but more than likely than not, it's moving to point of control, some kind of a trend line, or a leg point of control, or 50% retrace. It's either putting on a move or it's retracing to that. To each of these legs has their own little 50% zone and VWAP cloud, and I'm aware of that after 150, and I usually run an anchored VWAP, and I keep track of where 50% of the range is after 115, and it does tend to retrace to that, along with the other main larger chart Mojo neutral and wound cloud, which is 50% of the day's range and the VWAP for the day. That seems to be enough for now.